Welcome back to Gun and Shot TV. Today we're going to be talking about the M91 Mosin Nagant. I'm going to try not to put this through my ceiling. This is actually the primary Russian military rifle from the 1890s all the way up through World War II, essentially. By World War II, they had some newer designs that they were extensively fielding to try and keep the Germans at bay, but most of the troops would have had this all the way up until the end of the war, and supplies and such were scarce, so it was pretty common. They actually developed it in the 1880s to 1890s. It was two different designers had ideas, Mosin and Nagant. I don't think I'm pronouncing those quite right, but I don't really care. You'll see most people just refer to it as Mosin. I think Mosin was a military engineer or general of some sort, so he actually did most of the design work, and Nagant had some ideas. His design wasn't the one picked, but he had patented some of the ideas even though he didn't necessarily come up with them, so he decided he had rights. So the Russian government ended up paying both of them, and the name kind of got split between the two, and in the end Nagant ended up making their service revolver that they used in, I think, 1895. So, I mean, he did design some other stuff. But basically what it is it's a full-size bolt-action rifle. They made tons of these, and you'll see them for surplus for between, I would say now, somewhere between 100 and 300 bucks, which is pretty high, but that's kind of where the market's at right now. I think surplus is starting to dry up on these, so if you want one, I would get one now where they're still relatively cheap. Back in the 90s, when Russia fell, essentially, the Communist Party in Russia fell, these things were coming back surplus for pennies. You could get a crate of them for, I think they were crates for like $500-600. And you could pick these up new at the gun shop for $70, something like that. Still wrapped in cosmoline. You never really knew what you got. The big concern with these is they fired corrosive ammo. So a lot of them, the barrels might be a little bit rotty from shooting corrosive. So there's rust and stuff like that. But if you'd plunk down your money, or even today you can still plunk down your money, and you'll get one of these, it'll be all wrapped up and covered in grease, which is cosmoline, which is essentially, I think, diesel oil and grease blended together, and it makes this thick, sticky stuff they can apply, and then it stays on the gun. It does a great job of keeping the gun preserved, but it does not do wonders for the wood. Usually the wood is all gross and full of cosmoline because it soaks into the wood. So this is actually not a standard one that you'll find. This is not actually quote-unquote a Russian one. I mean, it was made by Russia in the 1890s, I would guess. It's actually a hex receiver, so it's got this hex-shaped receiver, so it's an earlier receiver. And then it's got a barrel that is stamped 1941 and has a Tika crest on it. What that really comes down to is before the revolution in 1917, Finland was part of Russia, essentially. So they had quite a few of these 1891 design rifles sitting around. While during the 20s and later in the 40s during World War II, they were taking those older guns and rehabbing them. If they had bad barrels or stocks were shot or whatever, they were going through and redoing them. Now, Finland had a little bit better standards of accuracy for what they wanted for their rifles, so you will see that these supposedly shoot better. Now, if they shot corrosive and the barrel's all pitted and shitty, there's no guarantees. So this one my dad got in the 90s for, I think, 30 bucks because the Finns used a two-piece stock. It's got this fingers that join together. So this is actually two pieces. Well, right where the joint is, a giant chunk was missing. So this has been plastic wooded in just to make it stop cracking further and give it a little more support. But in actuality, if you fired this one a lot, it would probably fall apart. So the Finns used that two-piece stock, and they used these unique swivels. Most of the Russian ones had a slot that you put a strap through to hold your sling on. And this is missing the handguard on top of the barrel here. That is common for Finns. Now, nobody really knows, did they take them off on purpose? Did they just break during the re-arsenalling process? who knows? I mean, a lot of the fittings on it are the M91 stock fittings. Just they mainly changed the stocks and did a few other things. So it is kind of neat. This was originally made in Russia, and you can tell that it's an older M91 gun because it actually has Arshins, which was the imperial measurement system that was done away with in the revolution in 1917. So there's actually 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and they're scored out. And then it's re-stamped in meters on the other side. And an Arshin's like something like a yard. It's like 2 1/4 feet or something like that. It was a yard or a meter in the Russian imperial system. So it's got a lot of interesting features and a mishmash, and it's re-stamped on the barrel Tika with a T and a triangle in 1941. Another really interesting thing about this is the barrel's been counterbored. So I don't think I can show you this on camera really, but the first maybe 1/4 inch, something like that, of the barrel has no rifling in it. And it's actually been drilled back, and probably what happened is someone over the years, when it was in Finland as a Russian gun, someone was a little rough with a cleaning rod and messed up the crown of the barrel. So to fix that, they just drilled it back just enough so they've got some existing rifling. So it's kind of nice because that new rifling and the new crown is protected because it's completely enclosed within the barrel. So these are interesting guns. Like I said, they're cheap. They kick a lot. You know, they're not great. You'll see, due to the length, and with a bayonet it's even longer, they actually started cutting these down. So later Russian ones will generally be cut down into like a carbine. I think that was like the M41 or something. So we'll see this same bolt design in action and everything, but with a shorter barrel. But really, not the greatest rifles. You know, there's rumors that they were accurate in sniper rifles and all that stuff. In reality, they weren't great rifles. Ones that were designated as sniper rifles with a scope attached and everything that are genuine probably were tested similar to Winchesters, 1 of 1,000 or 1 of 100, where they just shot them, and the ones that had exceptional accuracy were pulled off the line and said, okay, these are going in the sniper bin. So, you know, they were used as sniper rifles, but by and large, the actual infantry rifles were not great. You got to remember that in the 1890s, when these were designed, this was, you know, the time of volley fire and such. Before machine guns, that's how you control charges. You just shoot everybody's rifles in one direction and hope you hit somebody. So these weren't really made to some exacting standard. Pretty simple bolt design. It's got 2 locking ears. You pull the trigger and pull back and it comes right out. It's got a 5-round magazine that you feed with stripper clips. If you have ammo in there you want to dump, there's a little push tab on there. Drops out, we'll drop the ammo out. But a really kind of a unrefined design, essentially very early, pre-Mauser. I mean, Mauser had the same 2 locking tabs, and essentially the hold handle acts as a safety extra tab, but Mauser's was vertical where their tabs locked up. So not the most refined, smoothest design, but they'll shoot. The ammo's still pretty cheap. I think I got 10 rounds of steel case, just buying 10 rounds or 20 rounds at Walmart for like $10. So that's still pretty cheap to shoot for a full-size 30 caliber rifle. But that's about it. Like I said, this is a Finn Mosin with a hex receiver, so it's a little bit more rare. But in actuality, right now, they're still all pretty cheap. I don't think you can find a Mosin for more than, you know, $300-400 unless you find like a sniper one. I know there are some coming back now that are genuine snipers. So if you see one and you're interested, especially if it's cheap, you know, the days of them being $70 rifles are long gone. If you find somebody cutting one loose for about that and you're interested, that's a great price. I'd snap it up. And I would say within the next 5-10 years, especially with what's going on in Russia, I don't think we'll have the surplus coming back. So it's one of those things where if you get a chance now, I would snap them up because they're definitely a neat gun and a great piece of history to have around. For Gun&ShotTV, this is Chris saying thanks for watching.